Good. Thanks very much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thanks.
Okay, and then the slides are showing perfectly. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. I'm going to just kick off and then hand over to our chairman, Philip Kalinikos. So this is our 92nd annual general meeting. We're running it from Isle House, our head office in Johannesburg. Okay, just need to start my video. There we go. Just got a couple of announcements before we start. Firstly, please use the Q&A or chat function if you have any questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you during the AGM. If the power goes off, which it could likely do, just give us about 10 minutes and we'll fire up the generator and then you'll be able to rejoin using Zoom. So just give us 10 minutes if we do go offline, and we will get our generator going. If you experience any problems during the AGM, you can contact Isabel. Isabel is at the office with us now. You can email her at that address, or you can phone her at that number. Maybe just scribble down that number quickly, and she will answer, and between her and Melissa, they will help you and resolve any issues that you have. We are recording the AGM, and we will upload it onto our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So it'll be available for viewing on our YouTube channel. And then finally, we need to know whether we have a quorum present. So if you're a member of BirdLife South Africa, could you just quickly raise your hand, please? And Melissa will do a screen grab. So Melissa, I see that hands are being raised. Please, everybody just continue to raise your hands. And I see we have lots of members. There's a few more that need to be raised. We just need to make sure, as per our constitution, we have a quorum present. Just give Melissa a few minutes just to make sure that she has screen.
Mark, just keep talking to them.
I'll keep talking to you. Melissa's doing the screen grabs to make sure that we note all of the members who are present. And just while we're waiting and giving her a chance, Melissa, let me know when you're done. Just well done to Melissa on an incredibly successful Learn About Bird conference the last few days. Melissa must be absolutely labbed and zoomed out. I think we'll give her a few hours off on Monday. No more than a few hours. We've got some work to do. But well done.
Thank you, Mark. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. And I'm going to now hand over to our chairman, Philip Kalinikos. I will move to the next slide. Not working.
Started the video.
Just be the view.
Okay, you can. Yeah, I'll just run through these slides and I'll move them on. The video is not working.
Manuela. I'm on Manuela's. Eh?
Yeah. Okay.
Not Philip.
Okay. Philip. You could see her. You could see him sharing his screen. Okay. Go for it, Philip.
Thank you for that introduction, Mark, and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for giving up your valuable time this Saturday morning to be with us for our 92nd annual general meeting. We really greatly appreciate it. And I'm not going to single out anyone for a special welcome, but you can see we've got some prestigious people on the list that are with us today. Unfortunately, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the flock in the wilderness had to be cancelled for a second year running, and we are subjected to holding our AGM virtually again today. We have a full agenda this morning, so we'll get cracking with the first item on the agenda, which is apologies. And we've received apologies from the people named on the slide. If there are any additional apologies, could you please enter them using the chat box function? And we will record them on the minutes. We now move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous AGM held last year. Can I please ask you to raise your virtual hands if you are happy with the minutes that have been circulated?
We've got lots and lots of hands raised.
Thank you very much. Matters arising from the minutes of the 91st AGM. There is one matter that I need to raise, which relates to the resolution of the board dated the 10th of June 2020, which was attached to the minutes. And in terms of that resolution, I must now request your condemnation and ratification of the fact that the AGM last year was held late and virtually, as set out in that resolution. We've also got no option at the same time to request condemnation that we are virtual again this year. So please, again, if I could ask by way of raising hands, if you are happy to condone and ratify those two matters.
Good. 57 hands raised.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We can now move on to the Chairman's report. And I would like to start my report with a heartfelt thank you for the support that has been given to me and the organization by our board of directors over the past year. They have sacrificed an enormous amount of time to ensure that our organization's strategy and governance remained focused during the challenging times that we were faced with. And as you're aware, this is done on a purely pro bono basis. Our board of directors is currently constituted, collectively have the relevant professional skills and expertise that I believe are necessary during these challenging times. So joining Mark and myself in the boardroom today, we have Manuela Kroch, our treasurer. And Manuela is also a member of our Audit and Risk Committee, as well as a BirdLife National Trust trustee. We have Linda Hart, who's chairman of our nomination committee, and Yvonne Pennington, who's the chairman of our fundraising committee. In addition to that, the other board members are all attending virtually this morning, and they are David Chamberlain, Kaleboya Modisapodi, Ishmael Barat, Peter de Waal, Vernon Head, and Kolani Nicholas Fundai. And I urge you to please visit our website where you'll be able to see the CVs of our directors as published thereon. I'd like to propose that we give our board of directors a well-deserved virtual round of applause this morning in recognition of their contribution to the organization. So again, if I could ask you to raise your hand if you would like to join in the applause.
Almost 80 hands raised.
I would also like to extend my gratitude to Andrew Mitchell, the chairman of our Audit and Risk Committee, who's also with us today. Andrew, thank you very much for the support given to the board by you and your committee, Chris Corey, Germarie Pieterse, and Arthur Plint. It is greatly appreciated, Andrew. The committee's review statement can be found on page 35 of the annual report. I also need to acknowledge the work done, the excellent work done and being done by David Lawrence, chairman of the board of the BirdLife National Trust, and his fellow trustees, Humphrey Borkham, Michael Spicer, and Roger Wanless, in looking after and growing our investments during these troubled times. And finally, thank you to Professor Andrew McKechnie for undertaking the conservation review of the organization, which you will find on page 35 of the annual report. My formal chairman's statement can be read on page 2 of the annual report, and the annual review of the performance and effectiveness of BirdLife South Africa, as required by our constitution, is set out on page 35 and require no further comment. The organization, under the leadership of Mark, his senior management team and staff, have admirably dealt with the challenges raised by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And I can report that the conservation work has been maintained on track, finances are monitored and controlled excellently, staff retention was prioritized, and we got some wonderful support from the honorary patrons, sponsors, donors, and members to help us through this difficult time. In conclusion, it would be amiss of me not to dwell for a few minutes on the grave predicament that we, the human race, are facing with regard to our future on this planet. David Attenborough states our predicament very succinctly in the concluding paragraph of his latest book. It is clearly evident that our generation is the last that can make a meaningful impact on the ills and excesses of the past. And it is encouraging to see the groundswell movement currently gathering momentum towards the support of the environment and the greening of our practices across the globe. This encompasses governments, NGOs like ourselves, business corporations, the investment community, and society as a whole. BirdLife International recently produced a State of the World's Bird Report, which I would encourage you to read. It is clear that birds are excellent environment indicators and provide a suite of metrics and indicators to measure the progress we are making in this regard. Citizen scientists like yourselves are also increasingly mobilizing and sharing data on the occurrence and abundance of birds, enabling innovative approaches to their conservation. Our own team of staff also are making a huge contribution to conservation as evidenced in the annual report, and you will hear about some of the highlights later. One of the most critical initiatives that we have ever undertaken is the Maastrine Marion project, which is a massive project with a budget in excess of 200 million rand. We have formed a dedicated non-profit company to steer this work under the chairmanship of Dr. Mavuso Msimang. The project is gathering momentum at a prodigious pace, and I must in particular thank Dr. Frederick Paulson for the seed capital provided by him to allow us to do so. In conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to urge you one and all to make your own small contribution to this project by sponsoring 1 hectare of the island and becoming a part of this historical conservation event. Thank you very much. We are unfortunately not able to have Patricia Zurita, the Chief Executive of BirdLife International, join us virtually this morning. Unfortunately, circumstances did not allow this, but we are very honored to have received a video message from her, which we will share with you now.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Philip, members of the board, dear Mark and your wonderful team, all of the members of BirdLife South Africa. It's my immense pleasure to be addressing you at your General Assembly meeting today. I'm really sorry I cannot be with you live on Zoom, but when you hear this, hopefully I will be in the Trossachs in Scotland, trying to see golden eagles. I know it sounds tough, but in all seriousness, I'm really sorry I cannot be with you in person, because we had the chance to come to Scotland as my girls are on holiday and I haven't been out of Cambridge for over a year now. I'm sure you completely understand. As you probably heard, I'm the Chief Executive of BirdLife International, and we have seen firsthand how difficult this year has been, not only for us, but for many of our partners. 2020 was a crazy year, and while it was incredibly stressful trying to make ends meet, it has also been a year when we had to innovate, create, become more adventurous, so we can keep up the excellent conservation work despite of the difficult health and economic situations. I've seen this with your conservation conversations, your virtual bird fair, and now your cloud-based membership. But it's not only about the visibility and the fundraising side, but Mark's fantastic team has achieved so much this past year, and we are all incredibly proud of. Some of these extraordinary accomplishments are very well captured in your beautiful 2020 annual report. I just want to highlight a couple. The Vulture safe zone in Zululand, with the potential extension thanks to the support of Peace Parks, is an extraordinary achievement, and as you probably know, this is a key part of our Pan-African fight to bring vultures back from the brink of extinction. Prior to the Vulture safe zone in South Africa, we have been making similar strands in Zambia and pushing the other pieces of our vulture strategy in the continent by rolling out a rapid response to poisoning in Kenya, joining an international initiative to support protected area rangers so they can help protect vultures and other species while the pandemic had all wardens and rangers at home, and making progress in Nigeria, understanding more the ins and outs of the trade of body parts of vultures. We are delighted of your ambitious effort to free Marion from the mice that are threatening our birds. I've been very happy that BirdLife International has been able to contribute to your fundraising efforts through our operations in the UAs. I really hope I'll see many of you on the flock to Marion early next year. The cruise is not only going to be an extraordinary opportunity to see seabirds close and support the work in Marion, but also it will be the first of many events that we will use to launch the celebration of the 100th anniversary of BirdLife International. Yes, next year we turn 100, and we have chosen your fabulous cruise as the first of our stops to celebrate around the world the incredible achievements and the evolution of the BirdLife family over the last century. But more importantly, to launch our new 10-year strategy that will be approved by all BirdLife partners in September 2022. I'm immensely grateful to Mark and his team for helping us craft a new 10-year strategy that is an ambitious and bold plan to get the power of BirdLife to support nature and turn around the fate of biodiversity so we can thrive in a healthy planet. Thank you for your support to our One Planet, One Right campaign. You will hear from your staff about all of the other great achievements like the Albatross Task Force and the kickoff of the East Atlantic Flyway that I am particularly fond of, and I could not mention the progress on the white-winged flufftail. You have the experts in the room to talk more about this, so just allow me to congratulate the extraordinary work of BirdLife South Africa again, entice you to join us celebrating the 100th anniversary of the BirdLife family next year, and help us push through our new 10-year strategy, a stronger family that has the capacity to turn around the dreadful fate nature is seeing, so we can make this new decade not only the decade of restoration, but one that is seeing us put nature at the heart of everything. Thanks so much for having me, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful assembly.
It's now time for me to hand over to our president, Professor Anusha Chinsami-Turan, who will deliver her president's address to us. Over to you, Anusha.
Thank you very much, Philip. Distinguished guests, members of the board, members of BirdLife South Africa, and colleagues. It's really wonderful for me to welcome you to this virtual meeting this morning. And of course, as you know, this is our second virtual meeting, and I hope that next year we will all be able to meet in person. I have a pre-recorded talk that is going to be shown in the next few minutes, but before we go there, I just want to quickly say congratulations to BirdLife South Africa on all these successes and accomplishments. This has been an incredibly challenging year, and despite all of this, we've accomplished so much. So thank you for all your hard work. And thank you also to the teams on the ground that give conservation wings. So we can now go on to the formal part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anusha. I just want to encourage people just to turn their volume up. There's some of the videos are not as loud as we would like. So just make sure your volume's up loud for this and perhaps a couple of the other videos later in the report. Thanks very much. And I'm going to now play Anusha's presentation.
Hi, everyone. At previous BirdLife South Africa meetings, I've spoken about my research, and I've also spoken about the evolution of birds. So at today's annual general meeting, I thought I'd tell you about a topic that I feel very strongly about, and perhaps one that explains my involvement with BirdLife South Africa and also organizations such as WWF. Let me share my screen. There we go. So the topic that I'm going to talk about is extinctions past and present. So as you all know, we live on a spiral galaxy, much as the one that you see here in this picture. And we know that all the galaxies in our universe began about 13.6 billion years ago. When we look at the fossil record, we know that life on Earth only began about 3.8 billion years. And we know this because the fossil record
Has it paused?
It's obviously paused. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah.
Melissa, help!
Mark, please push play again on the PowerPoint slide.
Actually preserves the earliest traces of life in the rocks that date to about this age. So if we look at the fossil record, we can identify major episodes in the history of life on Earth. The first, of course, is the actual origin of life. The second is the development of multicellular organisms. And the third is probably the Cambrian explosion, when we get this rapid diversification in life that results in all the modern fauna that we see today. The next one is probably the greening of the planet, so the evolution of plants and the movement of plants onto land. And following this, we see the evolution of tetrapods and their movement onto land. And finally, I think one of the important stages in the history of life on Earth is development of reptiles, because reptiles give rise to mammals, they give rise to dinosaurs, and from the dinosaurs we see that we get birds evolving. So I guess this is a BirdLife South Africa talk, so I have to make the point that birds evolved from dinosaurs about 150 million years ago. So one of the other things that is very clearly evident in this chart are those 5 wavy lines that you can see. And those wavy lines actually mark extinction events in the history of life on Earth. So when we look at each of these in more detail, we know that these extinction events are what we call mass extinction events, because they are between 50 and 75% of the current species at the time that go extinct. And we know that there are 5 such events. Most of you probably have heard about the end of the Cretaceous extinction event, where non-avian dinosaurs go extinct and only the birds survive. But the other one that is very important, and I want to bring to your attention, is the end of the Permian extinction event, which is the biggest extinction event that ever occurred. And it really is the one that brings life on Earth to its knees. It was catastrophic for the planet. 90% of marine species go extinct, and 40% terrestrial species are also extinct at that time. So besides these 50 to 75% of species going extinct, the other features of the big 5 extinction events are that it affects a wide range of ecologies, and also that it occurs in a very short space of time. And another very important thing about the extinction events is that there's this dramatic turnover in organisms before the extinction event and after the extinction event. So we don't have time to go into detail about all these different extinction events, but if you really are interested, you're welcome to join my online course called Extinctions Past and Present. It's free, and the next one starts on the 7th of June. So what most scientists believe is that today we are living in the midst of the 6th extinction. And one of the biggest things about this is that this extinction event, unlike the other extinction events of the previous ones that have occurred in the fossil record, this one is driven by humanity, driven by humankind. We see that 1/5 of all living species are threatened with extinctions. Some scientists suggest that up to 50% of species alive today will die out as a consequence of human activity. If we look just at birds, we know that 1 in 10 bird species are considered globally threatened. Just at seabirds, we know that 28% of them are globally threatened. So the situation is really very dire. And it's not only for animals. We know that 13 to 22% of the world's plants are under threat. A quarter of all mammals are officially listed as threatened, and 2/3 of all other animal species are endangered. Worldwide, there are so many taxa that are listed as critically endangered, where the surviving populations are so small that if nothing is done, they will certainly become extinct in the next few decades. Right here in South Africa, we have many such examples. So for example, you have 50 arid adapted black rhinos. And in terms of birds, I'm sure with this particular group, you know all your data, but there's just numbers of organisms are so low that if we don't do anything about them, they are actually destined for extinction. And they are technically what we can call the living dead. So it's really very sad that humans are the main drivers of this extinction event. I mean, we are the most recent entrants on the stage of life on Earth. And in this very short time, we've actually caused such a tremendous amount of damage to the health of our planet. And we've done this in amazing ways, in an amazing variety of ways. I mean, I've a list here of habitat destruction and fragmentation, the introduction of invasive species or non-native species, depletion of the ozone, global warming. I mean, this list goes on and on and on. And we've really done this planet tremendous damage. But I firmly believe that the 6th extinction is not inevitable. I think that if we do something now, we can actually help the situation and we can curtail the 6th extinction. And we really have just about 50 years in which to do this. So what can we do? And I think we could protect the hotspots. We could increase the protected areas and even double the amount of protected areas. Certainly support conservation organizations such as BirdLife South Africa and World Wildlife Fund. Very importantly, I think we should change our attitudes. We should really practice the 5 R's of conservation, and we need to realize that the resources on our planet are not actually going to last forever, and that we need to be much more careful about how we use our resources. And the challenge, of course, is for us as scientists to engage with the public about this. I honestly believe that we need to think of ourselves as stewards of this planet. We pose such an incredible, formidable threat to the health of this planet that if we don't do something about it now, we actually will be a disaster for the planet and for humanity also. We need to realize that all life on Earth is intricately woven together. And if we continuously pull the different threads, the whole fabric will disintegrate. The fossil record has taught us that life has resilience, that at each major catastrophic event, we see that there is this turnover of different life forms. So we see a very dominant form of life that was present at the time goes extinct. And then when there is the recovery afterwards, organisms that were not very abundant, that were not actually dominant, they are the ones that survive, and they then again diversify and fill the various niches. And I think we as humans need to realize that there's a lesson in there for us. We are the dominant ones today. We are doing all the damage to the planet. And if we don't do something about it, it doesn't mean that we will be the ones to survive. I really honestly think that we need to think and see our planet the way an astronaut sees it, as a small blue planet in the vast openness of space. It's a fragile planet. It's the only one that we can call home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anusha. We are very proud and privileged to have someone of your caliber as our president. I'm now going to hand over to Mark, our CEO, for the organization's annual report.
Thanks very much, Philip. And also just from me, thank you, Anusha, for your presentation. Well, we are staring at a sixth extinction, but I share your optimism. Through the hard work of BirdLife South Africa and other organizations, we can avoid it. I'm going to just show a few slides, and I'm going to then hand over to our team, who are going to present short talks on some of their work. But before I start my slides, I just want to share some really good news with you. My WhatsApp was very busy this morning, and it was from the team from the RSPB who will be departing later today for Gough Island to initiate the Gough Island Restoration Program. One of the most important subantarctic islands is going to be part of a project to eradicate the mice that are wreaking havoc on the island's seabird population. We just wish our colleagues at the RSPB well during the next few months as they undertake this important work. Our work is summarized in our annual report, and that is available from BirdLife South Africa. We have hard copies as well as soft copies. Please contact us if you'd like a copy of the annual report. I'd just like to thank SAPI for the very generous support in sponsoring the design, the paper and printing costs. So the last year has been a very challenging one for everybody, including for BirdLife South Africa. We've had to deal with COVID-19. Since 19th of March last year, we've been largely working remotely. The staff have been very impressive during this time. They've remained exceptionally hardworking and productive, and I'd like to thank them for that. Since March last year, we've gone virtual. Everything is done virtually these days, lots of Zoom meetings. Most of us are Zoomed out, but we've certainly mastered it, thanks to people like Melissa and others. We have mastered the use of Zoom, and there's never a day without Zoom meetings. During the pandemic, we've used the opportunity to create awareness about BirdLife South Africa and the work that we do, and in particular, the role that we can play in conserving our planet and protecting it from future pandemics. During the last year, we've also been engaging with donors and collaborators, donors to inform them of the challenging times in which we're working and how we've been able to overcome those, but also working with other organizations. Some of them are attending the meeting today, and these are important collaborating organizations, Wild Trust, WWF, SANCOB, and others, and we really have appreciated the time that they've offered to us to talk and share ideas for collaboration during the past year. We've also had to put a lot more effort into fundraising. Economic times are tough, but we have luckily and happily been successful in what we've done, what we've achieved. And the reasons why I think we have been successful and have managed to weather this terrible COVID storm is through the agility of our organization. We've been able to do things very quickly. Innovation, we've been very quick to host virtual events such as the Bird Fair. Also hard work. I've seen the staff and our volunteers work very hard during the past year. We have a very committed support base, and our supporters have stood behind us through thick and thin over the years. And we've been very effective, I believe, in our communication. And I think when times are tough, communication is important. So one of the things we did last year was make a decision relatively early on to host a virtual African Bird Fair, and that went off exceptionally well. With the uncertainty this year, we will be hosting a virtual African Bird Fair again. This will be held towards the end of July. We didn't have an Owl Awards ceremony last year, but instead we celebrated over 11 days the recipients of the Owl Awards during the previous 11 years. And congratulations again to the people who've received Owl Awards from BirdLife South Africa and the contributions that they make to the conservation of birds in our country, but also to the work that BirdLife South Africa does. We'll be hosting a virtual Owl Awards event on Tuesday, the 22nd of June, and I'd like to encourage you to attend that event. One of the things that has kept us busy during the last year is the Flock to Marion expedition was postponed by a year, and it was clearly the right thing to do. It will go ahead in January 2022, and we hope that it'll go ahead without any problems. But we're very grateful to the 1,850 people who booked to join us on the voyage, and also for their support and understanding during these difficult times. And also like to thank MSC Cruises. MSC Cruises, and particularly the MD of MSC Cruises South Africa, has been absolutely superb in the support he gives us. And I think when we through this pandemic and after we've held a successful Flock to Marion, we'll look at other options of sailing into the ocean. And I think there are many places we could visit to allow us to see really good seabirds. We've done a lot to create awareness about our organization and our work during the past year, particularly in the social media space. We celebrated Women's Month, and we had daily posts highlighting all of the women that are involved in our organization. And the image on the left is our 3 lady honorary patrons who do support our organization. And then we did a really successful Hope campaign. We had about 330 slots on DSTV. I have to thank Mel Tripp and Flume, our pro bono ad agency, for the advert that was developed, and DSTV for allowing us that space. It's now on billboards in Johannesburg, and we've developed 8 media releases around the message of hope and why BirdLife South Africa's work is so important, and it can ensure that we have a better planet for its people and for the planet's biodiversity. Really importantly for me, we've ended last year with a financial surplus, as we've done during the previous decade. So we've now had 11 consecutive years with a surplus. You can see the red line above the bars. There was a decrease in income last year, and that was because some of our important projects, particularly those we've been involved with in the Indian Ocean high seas, came to an end. The income has increased again during 2021, but it's really pleasing that we've ended again with a surplus, a very small surplus, and really thanks to our donors for their support. The reason why I think that BirdLife South Africa did well, and continues to do well, is because we have a diverse source of income streams. And this image, which is taken from our annual report, shows this diversity of income streams. I think that's really pivotal to the success that we have in terms of raising the funds that we need to undertake our work. And then just to thank our numerous sponsors and donors. And the list in our annual report is getting longer and longer. You can see this list. You can go to our annual report on our website or ask us for a hard copy. And you can see all of the names of all of these people that support our organization. Really like to thank them for their work, their support. We have a number of corporate members. And importantly, we have a whole lot of Golden Bird patrons, more than 40 Golden Bird patrons in 2020 contributed more than 2.2 million rand unrestricted funding to our organization. So thank you to our Golden Bird patrons. Something which we're very passionate about is growing the number of Conservation League donors that we have. That figure on the left won't be very clear, but it is a scroll that's on our website which lists all of our Conservation League donors. We're approaching 180 Conservation League donors. We're determined to reach 200 Conservation League donors by the end of the year. They provide immensely important unrestricted funding which helps sustain our organization and our work. Then I'd also just like to personally thank our board of directors listed on the left for the support that they give us. We have a very engaging board, and I certainly benefit and our staff benefit from the support that we receive, and also the support we receive from the numerous organizations, committees. Philip did mention earlier as well that the CVs of the boards, as well as more details of the committees, the board subcommittees, available on our website. And then just to acknowledge our honorary patrons, 2 of them, Gaynor Rupert and Pamela Esdell, are in attendance this morning. Mark Shuttleworth and Dr. Precious Molloy Motsepe also support our organization. We really are grateful to have such distinguished people as our honorary patrons. And then our organization successes would not be possible without the hard work, dedication, passion, and enthusiasm of our staff. And believe it or not, this is a picture taken last March, just before the lockdown. We were all very happy. We left our staff meeting in Wakkerstroom all inspired and and enthusiastic, and little did we know that about 10 days later we'll be shutting down the office and working remotely for an extended period. But just thank you to our staff for all of their work. And yeah, thanks to everybody else who plays an important role in our organization and its work. And I just found a few quotes. Yesterday, it's, teamwork is important. Michael Jordan said, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. And there's a 13-year-old poet who passed away, Matti Stepanek, wrote that unity is strength. When there's teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. Thank you very much. Now, what I'm going to do is just show a video which has some very short presentations from a number of our staff. We can't, of course, talk about all of our organization's work. Some of that is summarized in our annual report. But what we've done this year is just we have 2 to 3 minute presentations by a few of our staff. In the next 30 minutes, you can sit back and listen and enjoy the presentation by our staff. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, it's a great pleasure for me to share with you BirdLife South Africa's conservation successes of 2020. Despite the challenges of a very difficult year, we can report on success in meeting our important conservation objectives and our key performance indicators. Just to highlight a few of those conservation successes, the new conservation division structure was successfully implemented at the start of last year, and this has led to improved synergy and collaboration between our 6 conservation programs. These programs also prepared draft strategies to guide BirdLife South Africa's conservation work over the next 5 years. It's good to have a strategy and a structure in place, but so much of our success is dependent on the conservation team. And therefore, I would like to take the opportunity to thank this very hardworking, dedicated, passionate team of conservation scientists that's really helped us to show our resilience in 2020. It was sad to see some of our staff leave, but we were fortunate to be able to appoint well-qualified and high-caliber staff in 4 of our new positions. It's impossible for us to do all the work by ourselves, and therefore I'd like to highlight the various partnerships that's either been established or strengthened during 2020 and has contributed to the success of our organization. Those partnerships are with non-profit organizations, private institutions, universities, government, etc. Then it's also impossible for me to highlight all our conservation successes in this short space of time, and I've literally just picked a few to share with you. The first is the declaration of BirdLife South Africa's 2nd vulture safe zone in northern KwaZulu-Natal, the Zululand Vulture Safe Zone. And still on the habitat side, it's great to share the excellent progress with the declaration of 24,000 hectares for the Upper Volga protected environment in the Eastern Free State and another 7,000 hectares for the Berg River Estuary protected environment in the Western Cape. BirdLife South Africa has also got a number of ongoing seabird and landbird projects which are very successful. Just to highlight one aspect, we've been tracking birds to understand more about their movements, their habitat requirements, as well as to learn more about their biology and life histories. And just in 2020 alone, we tracked 53 African penguins, 25 Cape cormorants, 5 white-backed vulture chicks, 3 secretary bird chicks, and 2 southern banded snake eagles. Now it's important for us to have a long-term impact, and we can do that through the publication of guidelines. So we published several guidelines during the past year, but I'd just like to highlight 2 of those. The first being in collaboration with SANBI and Enviro Insight, the Species Environmental Assessment Guideline, which defines the minimum reporting criteria for activities relating to the environmental impact assessment process. The second relates to biodiversity stewardship, and that's an in-country report and the first of its kind, and that's assessing the extent of other effective area-based conservation measures. Now, our team of conservation scientists is proud to say that we base all our conservation actions on scientific studies and scientific evidence. And as a team, we've published more than 10 peer-reviewed scientific publications in 2020 alone. And just to highlight again, just two of those. The first being a comprehensive study of birds killed after colliding with wind turbines in Southern Africa. And the second is on the critically endangered white-winged flufftail, the characterization of this bird's vocalization and also breeding status. A first breeding record was found at Middelpunt Wetland near Dalstroom in South Africa. And what we've learned is literally changed what we know and therefore will impact conservation action and also conservation effectiveness going forward. Thank you for being able to share these successes with you. I'm sure you will enjoy the presentations that will follow on more successes by my colleagues. Thanks.
BirdLife South Africa is very innovative, creative, and clever in its marketing work. And as a result, we've raised awareness about our organization, about our work, and about our country's birds. This awareness and marketing work has benefited from the assistance we've received from Utopia and Flume, our two pro bono advertising agencies, as well as JC&Co, and of course, our marketing committee. We were especially pleased in 2020 when DSTV offered us free television airtime. The package comprised 330 spots on 8 DSTV channels over 3 weeks in August. Since we had no existing television commercial, we decided to create one that would show the relevance of our conservation work in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mel Tripp directed the work and Flume assisted with the production. Captions rather than a voiceover were used so as not to detract from the Dawn Chorus soundtrack. Social media exposure of the TV spot gained an even wider audience. The television commercial received high praise. We also developed 8 media releases to show the relevance of BirdLife South Africa's work and how, by looking after the natural environment, we can prevent future pandemics. The video and the media releases are available on BirdLife South Africa's website, and the clever adverts can be seen on JC&Co billboards in Gauteng. Enjoy the video.
Good morning, good people. This is Rizal Nyengera from Albatross Task Force team. Today I'm going to talk about the new bird scaring line device, innovation. Seabirds are faced with a range of anthropogenic stressors that include fisheries, pollution, climate change, human disturbances, invasive species, and habitat degradation. In South Africa, bycatch in fisheries has an impact on 28 species of seabirds, of which 21 are albatrosses and petrels. An estimate of 15,000 birds are at risk of getting killed during fishing operations in South Africa alone. In order to address this issue, Albatross Task Force worked together with the fisheries, the government, and other NGOs, which led to the introduction of a simple and more effective system of bird scaring lines, amongst other mitigation measures. As a result, the use of bird scaring line has become mandatory in the permit conditions. However, there is a huge challenge in ensuring compliance of mitigation measures in the absence of observers, as some of the fisheries are so reluctant in deploying the bird scaring line during fishing operations. At present, assessing of compliance is only possible if the observer is on board. In order to address this challenge and find a solution, in 2019, Envelope Blue Environment produced a device to attach on bird scaring lines and measure and record the tension created by the pull of the deployed bird scaring lines. This compliance device captures and stores information for verification after fishing trips. In 2020, Albatross Task Force was granted funding from Agreement on the Conservation of Albatrosses and Petrel to help further develop and test the device. We worked closely together with the Imvelo fishers on troll and long line vessels to test and improve the pull and threshold of different bird scaring lines under different weather conditions. The bird scaring line was tamper-proof, which reduced the chances of data faking. We also managed to carry trials on 3 different fleets and produce tension profiles like the ones that are being shown in the figures. The device is also able to record date and time when the bird scaring lines were deployed, and we use this to match with the data logs. While these are preliminary results, we are happy with the progress which have been achieved through innovation and collaboration. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the director of Imvelo Blue Environment, Victor Ngongo, for coming up with this amazing concept, and Dr. Miranda, the director of Argonaut Science, for engineering this device. Not forgetting my working colleague, Andrea Angel, who worked tirelessly for the past year to make this happen, and ACAP for funding and support the project. I think the future is looking good. Thank you so much. Asante sana.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be speaking to you today as a representative of BirdLife South Africa's policy and advocacy program. And importantly, although this program does spend part of its time responding to problematic developments at project level, we place a far stronger emphasis on working proactively to ensure that the overarching legal and policy frameworks within which these developments are assessed and within which they operate are as robust as possible from a bird conservation perspective. And so it's to that end that in 2019, we embarked on a collaboration with SANBI and Enviro Insights to develop a species environmental assessment guideline. And this was finalized at the end of last year and published in January. So why is the guideline significant? Well, investigations by specialists are obviously a crucial component of the EIA process, but until recently, there were no standardized requirements at national level for how these investigations should be performed and how they should be reported on. And the result has essentially been that competent authorities are oftentimes presented with reports that lack sufficient information for decision-making. So in an attempt to address this challenge, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment has produced a series of protocols which provide a minimum set of assessments and reporting criteria for various environmental themes. And the species level aspects of EIAs specifically are currently standardized by what are known as the terrestrial plant and animal species protocols. So the species environmental assessment guideline in turn was essentially designed to support the implementation of the terrestrial plants and animal species protocol. So while the protocols themselves are legally binding and must be complied with, the guideline describes the manner in which these legal requirements can most effectively be complied with. So for instance, it provides various worked examples, and it includes guidance on sampling and data collection methodologies, not only for birds, but for a variety of other taxa as well. So we're very proud of this product. We sincerely hope that in combination with the protocols, it will improve the quality of species impact assessments in South Africa. And so as a next step, we're working again with Enviro Insights to produce several training materials for competent authorities, essentially to assist them in assessing adherence to the guideline. So continue to watch this space, and thank you very much for your attention.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'll be talking to you about the support BirdLife South Africa is providing to other African countries to identify and safeguard the most important places for biodiversity. Why is BirdLife South Africa working at a regional level? First, BirdLife South Africa is regarded by the BirdLife International Partnership as one of the strongest partners in terms of governance, but also because of the cutting-edge conservation work we do at a national level. Second, BirdLife South Africa has championed the production of the Red Data Book, which highlights the conservation status of all birds occurring at a national level. And third, BirdLife South Africa has championed the identification of the flagship program of BirdLife International, the important birds and biodiversity areas, and using data from these important birds and biodiversity areas to identify key biodiversity areas. And I'll talk to you about this in the next slide. Our approach really is to support and build capacity across African countries to mobilize foundational biodiversity information that can be used to monitor the status, trends, and pressures on national biodiversity using knowledge products mobilized by the IUCN. For example, the Red List of Species, which highlights which species at a landscape level are threatened with extinction, the Red List of Ecosystems, which looks at which ecosystems are at risk of collapse, and using the Red List of Species information and the Red List of Ecosystem data to identify key biodiversity areas, which are sites that contribute significantly to the persistence of global biodiversity. Our effort so far in Kenya has been to mobilize a cohort of species experts and train them on how to apply the IUCN global status for the Red List of Species. In Ethiopia, we mobilized a cohort of spatial experts and train them on applying the IUCN global standards for the Red List of Ecosystems. And in Mozambique, we've trained a cohort of experts also to identify key biodiversity areas and also help in the establishment of the Key Biodiversity Area National Coordination Group, which is a national constituency of local experts that help to promote, conserve, and identify key biodiversity areas. And in Mozambique, 30 sites of global importance have been identified. The importance of our support so far has been capacity building in terms of applying the IUCN Red List of Species and Ecosystem standards and the identification of key biodiversity area standards. Also, countries now can better support local economic development, protect and conserve biodiversity, and report on both national and international biodiversity agreements. And really one big support is the awareness that has been created around KBAs and using biodiversity information to be able to save their terroir forests from bauxite mining. And BMW and other big corporates are now concerned about sourcing aluminium and bauxite from these key biodiversity areas. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anton Wolfert. I am the project manager for the initiative titled Saving Marion Islands Seabirds, the Mouse-Free Marion Project. It is a project with a bold title, but it is an accurate one. This is an ambitious, challenging, and hugely important project that is being undertaken as a partnership between BirdLife South Africa and the South African Department of Forestry, Fisheries, and the Environment. I'm sure that many of you will be familiar with Marion Island and its importance, even if you've never had the opportunity to visit it. It forms part of the Prince Edward Island group in the southwest Indian Ocean. It is a subantarctic island and is globally important for seabirds and other subantarctic biodiversity. Marion Island alone supports about a quarter of the world's population of wandering albatrosses, and together with neighboring Prince Edward Island, the island group hosts almost 50% of the world population of wandering albatrosses. Its importance is reflected in its status as a special nature reserve, which is the highest level of protection afforded by South African legislation, and it is also listed as a Ramsar site of international importance. But unfortunately, Marion Island is under threat due to the impacts of introduced house mice. House mice were introduced by sealers accidentally some 200 years ago, and they've been wreaking havoc on the island ever since. We've known for some time about the impacts that the mice were having on, or are having, on the terrestrial ecology of the island, including the vegetation, on the invertebrates, and on ecological processes. And about 2 decades ago now, it became apparent that the mice had started attacking and killing seabirds on the island, including large surface nesting albatrosses such as the grey-headed and the wandering albatross depicted here. And we now know from work underway that the majority of seabirds on the island face a very real risk of local extinction if the mice remain on the island over the next 30 to 100 years. So clearly something needs to be done to address this threat and to prevent that from happening. Perhaps some 30 to 40 years ago, it would have been considered impossible to eradicate mice from an island the size of Marion, and an island that is as topographically complex as Marion Island. However, there have been huge advances made over the last couple of decades, pioneered by the New Zealanders, but also by a number of other initiatives that have successfully eradicated rodents from large subantarctic islands. And these initiatives have provided lessons for subsequent operations. And we've been very fortunate to make use of these lessons and to inform our own planning by the internationally agreed best practice to underpin our plans to eradicate mice on Marion Island. And over the last few months, we've made considerable progress to achieve this outcome. A non-profit company has been established to take this work forward. I was appointed as project manager in February this year, and we are in the process of recruiting an operations manager to lead on the operational aspects of this important project. And there are a number of individuals and organizations that are working really hard and are motivated by the fact that this is an opportunity to make a real difference to ensuring the ecological balance of Marion Island is shifted back to a more pristine form and would assist in securing a more positive conservation future for species such as the one-ring albatross and the many other seabirds that call the island home. So we hope that you continue to follow our progress and to support the project, and we look forward to keeping you posted about our progress in that regard. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Today I'll be sharing the regional work being implemented to assure the conservation of migratory species along the East Atlantic Flyway. The East Atlantic Flyway is a network of sites that are used by birds which travel thousands of kilometers and migrate from their northern breeding grounds in Eurasia to their wintering areas in Western and Southern Africa. These birds rely on a series of high-quality coastal and inland sites as stopover points to feed and rest. The flyway is important for shorebirds, both for coastal and waders species, as well as numerous land birds. Approximately 90 million birds rely on this connected network of sites. Waders are particularly dependent on key sites, many of which are well known and shown in the map. Land birds also migrate along these pathways, but they migrate on broad fronts, utilizing multiple stopover and overwintering sites. This makes the conservation of land birds much more difficult to manage when compared with waders. Migrants face several threats on their journeys across rapidly changing landscapes. Examples of the threats faced along the flyway are habitat loss and degradation, agricultural expansion, and hunting and illegal killing. East Atlantic Flyway, or EAFI, was established in 2015 by a number of BirdLife partners, including BirdLife South Africa. The idea behind the EAFI program is that the partners along the flyway lead the work to ensure the conservation of migratory species and their habitats. In the Southern African region, the countries of focus within EAFI are South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. In some of these countries, there are BirdLife partners through which we collaborate, namely Birdwatch Zambia, BirdLife Botswana, and BirdLife Zimbabwe. In Namibia and Angola, we are working with other biodiversity NGOs and government departments. The project is partnering with and supporting countries to understand and report their biodiversity. Through training and capacity building, countries will improve their knowledge on the key threats these species face along the flyway, improve the conservation and management of important sites, expand the network of areas which are protected and conserved, and influence policy to ensure better protection of migratory species nationally, regionally, and internationally. BirdLife Botswana has implemented a successful bird monitoring program, which has been in existence for 9 years to monitor trends of birds. The program currently has 300 volunteers, and rural communities and local guides are integrally involved in the project. The communities have begun to appreciate birds in their backyards. They plant more trees to support them and put water out to attract them. Engaging with international agreements, supporting countries to report against these agreements, and opposing unsustainable development such as mining at key sites for biodiversity are all key aspects of policy and advocacy work along the flyway. Some of the examples of support provided to the regional partners through the Policy and Advocacy Program Manager includes the submission of a detailed comment document relating to diamond prospecting rights along the Orange River, and support provided to Birdwatch Zambia and BirdLife Zimbabwe in developing a position paper on the proposed hydroelectric scheme in the Batoka Gorge. Key biodiversity areas are the most important places in the world for species and their habitats. By protecting these species, we'll have the highest success in conserving priority biodiversity. South Africa is the first in the world to complete a national KBA assessment for all ecosystems and multiple groups of species. Preliminary results conclude we have more than 540 KBAs. These are a few examples of the regional work being undertaken along the East Atlantic Flyway. Ultimately, collaboration is key to achieve a healthy flyway in order to provide a safe space for these migrants and birds to visit Southern Africa.
Good morning. I'm Andrew de Block and I'm the AP Tourism Project Manager at BirdLife South Africa. I transitioned into this new role in May 2020 in the midst of the national lockdown. This was something of a baptism of fire for a move into tourism. One of BirdLife South Africa's most successful projects is our Community Bird Guide project. We currently have around 50 active guides across the northeast of the country, but the unexpected halt of all local and international travel left these guides stranded. One of my first points of business, therefore, was to find a way to support these guides. We hastily established the Community Bird Guide Relief Fund by providing some seed funding of our own and then appealing to the birding public to donate. It is a testament to the high regard that birders hold for our guides that we were swiftly able to raise R750,000. Over 40 guides were supported with monthly contributions from June until November when local tourism resumed. This was a literal lifeline that made it possible for the guides to continue supporting their families and affording essentials such as food, medicine, and keeping the lights on at home. We cannot sufficiently express our gratitude for the generous spirit shown by the birding community. From individuals to bird clubs to corporates, the community came together to support the guides in their time of need. On behalf of BirdLife South Africa, thank you. And on behalf of the guides, I would like to share these few messages.
Hi, this is David Letsalo from Krisamoya Nature Lodge. I would like to thank you.
Sorry, darling. Take off your mask and the cap so that you can be recognized.
Thank you, my love. I would like to thank everyone who has helped us to, in this tough time, to be able to get some grocery and support. Without your help, we wouldn't have been where we are at the moment and been surviving. We would be stressed and not being able to know what to do. But with your help and your outreach and thinking about us, you really made it. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Thank you.
My name is Sakamuzi Mhlongo from Zululand. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to say thank you for the contribution that you made on the Guides Relief Fund. You have shown us the spirit of Ubuntu. See you in the bush when the storm is over.
Hi guys, my name is Themba Mthembu. I'm based in St. Lucia, Northern Kwazulu-Natal. I just would like to thank all of you for stretching out your hands and try to help the guys during such harsh, if not horrible time of COVID-19. I really appreciate that. We wouldn't have managed without you. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to the annual report for 2020's Conservation Conversations. As your host, Melissa Whitecross, I will be showcasing some of the highlights from our 2020 season and sharing some of the insights gained from BirdLife South Africa's weekly webinar series. BirdLife South Africa is proud to have a network of over 40 bird clubs that we regularly engage with through in-person lectures and courses. However, when South Africa was plunged into the grips of the global COVID-19 pandemic, we found ourselves with a very real dilemma at the end of March 2020, when South Africa's national lockdown prevented us from visiting our bird clubs for in-person events. Luckily, through the rapidly developing virtual meeting space supplied by Zoom, some quick thinking by the BirdLife South Africa team enabled the launch of our very own virtual weekly bird club meeting, which enabled us to keep in touch with our members across South Africa and bring BirdLife South Africa's conservation work to the attentions of a much wider audience across South Africa and the world. Our first webinar aired on 14 April 2020. We built up our audience from an average viewership of 525 live viewers in the first quarter of the year to an average of 658 live viewers in the last quarter. Our standout talk of last year was by far that of Duncan Mckenzie, who gave a phenomenal overview of birding in Kruger National Park, with 1,050 live viewers tuned in from around the world. Duncan's YouTube recording has also reached 1,760 views on YouTube. The webinar series has gone a long way to boosting BirdLife South Africa's YouTube profile, and in the year 2020, we managed to secure an additional 529 subscribers to our channel, with over 24,900 views of videos posted to our YouTube channel. We invite all attendees to subscribe to YouTube if you have not yet done so. We enjoyed a global audience on the show, with viewers tuning in from across South Africa, the African continent, Europe, North America, and even Australia. We're grateful for the diverse audience that has chosen to spend their Tuesday nights with us. In 2020, we were able to produce 34 episodes. These are all recorded and available on YouTube, as well as on our podcast that can be accessed through all major audio streaming services. A quick analysis of our topics covered highlights that we stuck to our core mission of raising awareness about conserving birds in South Africa, with a lot of interesting seabird focused talks in particular. I'd like to say a big thank you to the many presenters who joined us on the show in 2020. Without their outstanding efforts, we would not have had a webinar series to entertain all of our dedicated viewers. A massive thank you must go to Andrew de Block for his excellent co-hosting. And I'd also like to thank Janine Gerson and Carl Bierman for their assistance behind the scenes. Thank you to all of our members who tuned in during 2020. Make sure to join us every Tuesday at 7 o'clock South African Standard Time for our fun, free conservation conversations webinars. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. BirdLife South Africa's Vulture project continued to make major progress on two fronts, both in our lead research and also in the implementation of vulture safe zones in South Africa. We are slowly gaining a better understanding of the impact of lead poisoning on South Africa's Cape and vulture chicks. In October 2020, telemetry devices were fitted to 5 whiteback vulture chicks at Dronfield Nature Reserve. And this study aims to track the movements of these chicks during their first year of life to determine whether exposure to lead as nestlings will compromise their movement behavior and or survival rate as newly fledged juveniles. And an additional 10 devices will also be fitted to chicks towards the end of 2021. Research into the sublethal effects of lead on vultures also continued when a team of climbers collected blood samples from Cape vulture chicks at a breeding colony above the Curragh Mark Spruit in Eastern Cape Province. The study will provide the first scientific evidence of the detrimental effects lead may have on vulture physiology. But by far the best highlight of the year happened in Zululand when South Africa's Vulture project made major progress with the implementation of vulture safe zones. This is an initiative where owners of large tracts of land are convinced to manage their land in ways that will safeguard vulture populations. In September 2020, over 200,000 hectares of privately owned land was secured for vulture conservation in Zululand when the Zululand Vulture Safe Zone was declared on International Vulture Awareness Day. The project was a major collaborative effort and encompasses 14 properties stretching all the way from Angola Game Reserve in the north to the borders of the Nkuzi section of Isimangaliso National Park in the south. The region provides important breeding habitat, not only for the critically endangered whiteback vulture, but also for the endangered lapitad-faced vulture, and was a logical choice for the introduction of vulture safe zones into KwaZulu-Natal province. With this first and most important phase now complete, the groundwork has been laid for the expansion of the safe zone further north into Eswatini and Mozambique and east towards Italo Nature Reserve. And we want to thank Clive de Villiers and all the other landowners who made this possible. Thank you.
My name is Carl Lloyd, and I'm the Rock Jumper Fellow of White-winged Flufftail Conservation. My position is made available by Rock Jumper Birding Tours through the Preventing Extinctions program at BirdLife International. The white-winged flufftail is a critically endangered species and is considered to be a habitat specialist, preferring intact, healthy wetlands. By conserving the white-winged flufftail, we are also conserving habitat for a host of species that depend on functioning wetlands. Because of the highly cryptic behavior of the white-winged flufftail, we use passive monitoring equipment to study the bird's population dynamics and ecology. Motion-detected camera traps were deployed at 3 sites during the 2019 breeding season. This included a cattle farm, nature reserve, and a site just outside the nature reserve. The most significant result from the study was that there were no white-winged flufftail recorded at this cattle farm, which had been recorded in previous years. This is the result of a severe winter fire. Not only were white-winged flufftail affected, but there was also an overall reduction in rallid species richness. While these results are highly unfortunate, they do help to inform best practice guidelines for wetland management. Colleagues at BirdLife South Africa also published 3 papers about white-winged flufftail. This included a methodology paper for studying white-winged flufftail nests, an update on the population abundance of white-winged flufftail in Ethiopia, formal description of the bird's call, and the first breeding record of the white-winged flufftail in South Africa. The description of the bird's core has allowed us to conduct acoustic surveys across South Africa to determine the bird's presence. The current distribution map is outdated with only scattered records. Acoustic surveys were conducted along the eastern escarpment of South Africa at 16 sites. This provides a non-invasive way of determining the bird's presence. A direct application of these results is that we can provide national and provincial governing bodies with a list of wetlands that we believe to be important for the white-winged flufftail. At the National White-winged Flufftail Task Team meeting, which meets annually, we can also propose actions for these wetlands to improve their conservation status. Several funding applications were made in 2020. Of these, 3 small grants were successful. There were also several individuals and companies who sponsored equipment, and there were discounts for short courses for skills development. I'd also like to take this opportunity to draw your attention to the Kruger Birding and Wildlife Challenge that will be taking place in February next year. This is the main funding event for this project. I'd just like to end off by thanking many individuals and companies for making this project a success. Thank you.
Good day, dear members. Here follows a summary of BirdLife South Africa's activities during 2021. Senior management maintains a proactive approach in dealing with the uncertainties brought about by COVID-19 by continuously planning ahead and varying implemented actions according to up-to-date information. On the conservation side, all the programs of the Conservation Division are finalizing their overarching strategies and conservation objectives. The Landscape Conservation Program is focusing on projects where threatened species and threatened habitats overlap. There is a focus on grasslands, wetlands and estuaries, and the threatened species that inhabit these areas. There is a continued strong focus on working with locals through biodiversity stewardship and working with industry, for example, on the placement of wind farms. Amongst many other objectives, we maintain our leading research on the impact of lead on birds, especially vultures. The Regional Conservation Program continues to strengthen partnerships and promote conservation initiatives in countries falling under the East Atlantic Flyway. We also assist with the capacity building and provide groundwork and training for future national red list assessments throughout Africa. Seabird Conservation Program's activities are aimed at tackling the unique threats posed to pelagic and coastal seabirds respectively. On the pelagic side, the already hugely successful work on seabird bycatch mitigation is continuing, while for coastal seabirds, the recently established mainland African penguin colony will be bolstered by, amongst other interventions, the introduction of captive reared birds to attract wild birds to use the colony. The Empowering People program is supporting existing bird guides while also training 2 groups of new bird guides this year and will launch a brand new AV tourism web resource later in the year. Science and Innovation is developing habitat suitability models for all threatened and endemic bird species in South Africa and will continue to develop innovative tools for conservation planning. The Policy and Advocacy Program's focus is on influencing legislative and policy frameworks and producing targeted guidance to improve environmental impact assessments and decision-making. BirdLife South Africa is playing a prominent role in establishing and administrating the Mouse-Free Marion non-profit company. A communications manager has been appointed to take our organization's interactions with the broader public to a new level, and a new marketing strategy will also be developed. On the funding side, we are very proactive, ensuring that we have sufficient funding in place for our conservation work well in advance of current funding agreements expiring. One area of funding need is the Wakkerstroom Tourism and Education Centre and its important environmental education work. We're also raising funds for the purchase of an office for our Cape Town-based staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to our Honorary Treasurer, Manuela Kroch.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for making the time to join us on our second virtual AGM. As Honorary Treasurer, I would like to take just a few moments of your time to share some financial highlights of the 2020 financial year. I am delighted to report that despite the many challenges presented by operating in a time of COVID, that BirdLife South Africa has achieved its 11th consecutive operating surplus. Net income for the year is 438,000 Rand versus 230,000 Rand in the year before. This result is thanks to generous donations from our members, the successful first virtual bird fair, as well as some cost savings achieved through a reduced amount of travel due to the pandemic. As can be seen, the Conservation Division did suffer a small loss in the current year, and this is due to certain projects where expenses were incurred beyond the funding timeline. The fact that the organisation consistently continues to cover its core and conservation costs is testament to the generous support from our donors and members, as well as the diligent financial management and strong governance culture of BirdLife South Africa. If we move on to the statement of financial position, the only thing I'd really like to highlight here is that BirdLife South Africa has sustained its strong balance sheet, with cash reserves exceeding liabilities at year-end. And in current times, I'm sure you'll all agree, this is indeed a fortunate position to find ourselves in. This next slide is really just a slide of key ratios and trends, and I'd like to just point out a few highlights to you. The key ratios presented, which are really balance sheet ratios, mainly reflected on our financial health, shows that these have remained relatively consistent with prior year and are well within accepted norms for a healthy organisation. The first graph on the left at the bottom of the slide, being income by division, shows income for the business and conservation divisions, something that Mark has already highlighted a little earlier. The conservation division has reflected a slight reduction in funding in 2020, but this is principally due to the long-running Common Oceans project coming to a close at the end of 2019. Again, as Mark has indicated, there will be a slight increase in funding for 2021. The second graph on the right reflects cash balances versus income received in advance. What is noteworthy is that BirdLife South Africa has been able to improve its surplus cash over time. The current surplus funds are estimated to fund in the region of 5 months of core cost, which always provides comfort in difficult times. If we move on to the next order of business, this is to deal with the formal adoption of the annual financial statements for the financial year ended December 2020. Just for record purposes, these financials have been available on the website for some time for review by our members. The annual financial statements have again been audited by KPMG, who have provided an unmodified opinion for the year. And we'd like to place on record our appreciation to KPMG for their consistent service and the professional manner in which they conducted the audit. From a proposal perspective as Honorary Treasurer, I would like to propose these annual financial statements for approval and adoption by members present. Mark, are we required for a show of hands, or is that just formality? Yeah. Show of hands from everybody, please.
We've got 40, almost 50 hands.
That should be sufficient. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for the vote of confidence. The next order of business, which is the next item on the agenda, is to deal with the appointment of the external auditors for the forthcoming 2021 financial year. And again, from a recordal perspective, KPMG has indicated their willingness and availability to act as external auditors to BirdLife South Africa for the forthcoming year. And as Honorary Treasurer, I'd like to propose the appointment of KPMG as the external auditors, and we would require another raising of hands from you for this. Thank you so much.
Got 50 hands.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, everybody. That was short and sweet from my side, and we can move on from there.
Thank you very much, firstly to Mark and his team for the organisation report, and to Manuela for her Treasurer's report. At this stage, I just need to formally request our members for their approval and adoption of both reports, the CEO organisational report and our Treasurer's report. By a show of hands, please.
More than 60.
The next item on the agenda is nomination and election of office bearers. I have nothing to report under this item, as none of the office bearer terms are up for renewal this year, so we can move on. And I'm going to now hand over to Mark to introduce the next two agenda items, namely the prestigious Gill Memorial Medal Award as well as the BirdLife initiatives and publications. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Philip. It's a great pleasure for me to just say a few words before we hand over to our Honorary President to read the Gill Memorial Medal citation. Just briefly as background, the Gill Memorial Medal is quite old. It was started in 1960. And in fact, that's a scan of the page from Ostrich, our scientific journal, which described this award. And the key words in description were that this award would be presented to ornithologists who make outstanding contributions to ornithology in Southern Africa. So the two key words there, I suppose, are ornithology, the study of birds, and Southern, and not South Africa, so in the region. We've presented this award 24 times. You can see here the list of recipients of the award, and these are also available on our website. The most recent recipient was Professor Claire Spottiswoode in 2019. Sorry, I'm going to go back a moment. So great pleasure for me to have to invite Professor Nusha Chinsami-Turan to read the citation. We're going to do this from Melissa's computer, so I'm going to stop sharing and she will play the citation and then the presentation from the recipient straight afterwards. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. It is a real pleasure for me to be here this morning on this occasion of the 92nd AGM of BirdLife South Africa. I've been asked to do a very special task, and to begin, I need to share my screen. It is a real honor for me to read the citation of our Gill Memorial Medalist, David George Allan. David, as you know, is an accomplished ornithologist and is an avid and enormous experienced birdwatcher. David has always favored application over theory and effective conservation over the simple generation and analysis of data. For over 40 years, David has brought his unique blend of pragmatism, sincerity, and deep knowledge to bear in furthering our understanding of the region's birds and in highlighting and mitigating the threats they face. The scale of his contribution to date may come as a surprise to some, simply because he has tended to operate outside of the limelight, quietly identifying and addressing priority issues and selflessly helping others to do the same. David Allan is one of only a handful of names that lace the contemporary annals of local ornithology, and his name is likely to come up as an author or instigator in any assessment of work done over the last 3 to 4 decades, regardless of the taxon or aspect of avian biology under review. His tertiary education began with a BA in law obtained at Wits in 1981. Before finishing his BA, he spent a year working as a nature conservation officer with what was then the Transvaal Provincial Administration, or TPA. He resumed this work immediately after graduating, and his full commitment to a life in biology became apparent when he studied part-time to obtain a first-class honours degree in zoology from Wits in 1985. That same year, he was promoted to nature conservation scientist with TPA. For much of the time he spent working for TPA, he assisted and then collaborated with his mentor, Warwick Tarberton, on a variety of what subsequently became benchmark studies for birds. For example, a survey of the raptor population of what was then the Transvaal, an annual monitoring of the Cape vulture colonies in the Transvaal, and surveying wattle, blue and grey crown cranes at Highveld wetlands in the grassland biome of what is now Mpumalanga. He also pursued various other studies more independently. For example, he described aspects of the distribution, breeding behavior and ecology of the southern bald ibis in the Transvaal. He coordinated a national count of white storks visiting South Africa as part of a global census. He detailed the breeding ecology and conservation status of Rudd's lark, and he unraveled the interaction of 3 species of sparrowhawk nesting in stands of alien trees in the Hackwood Valley. And he also coordinated the first national survey of blue swallows. In 1987, David relocated to Cape Town, taking up a position as Research Officer at the Percy Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology, the Percy Fitz as we all know it. He also started as a part-time master student at the Fitz under the supervision of the late Phil Hockey, where he focused on using row transect methods to count Ludwig's bustard in the Karoo. Over time, the project was expanded to include other large terrestrial birds and was eventually more to do with the rapidly growing population of blue crane resident in the wheat fields of the Overberg than with Ludwig bustard. David shifted from the Fitz to the Avian Demography Unit in 1990. He obtained his master's with distinction in 1994 while playing an increasingly significant role in the Southern African Bird Atlas Project, one of the largest and most ambitious citizen science initiatives of its time. In 1996, David moved to Durban and took up a position as the curator of birds at the Durban Natural Science Museum. He has remained in this position since. Aside from the day-to-day aspects of his job at the museum, David has managed to continue with a variety of research interests, including a long-term study of the bird life of Durban Bay, and he has led over 100 pelagic seabird day trips off the coast of Kwazulu-Natal. He has also expanded his involvement in bird impact studies, injecting much needed knowledge, experience and high ethical standards into this contentious field, including important work done on all phases of the Lesotho Highlands water scheme, carefully documenting the avifauna in the affected targeted areas by this controversial set of developments, and wherever possible reducing the impact of the completed phases on threatened bird life. Thus far in a career that is hopefully far from over, David has been an author of several books and has published over 400 popular and semi-popular articles on Southern African birds and more than 200 scientific papers, about 70 of which are in peer-reviewed journals. Species accounts for bird handbooks have been a hallmark of his publication interests, including for the 2-volume The Atlas of Southern African Birds, the Roberts Birds of Southern Africa, and the Handbook of Birds of the World. He is a regular contributor to African Bird Life, the semi-popular magazine of BirdLife South Africa, and has produced a regular column for the magazine over a 5-year period. He has been an editor of several journals and newsletters. David Allan is one of 3 editors of the recently launched online journal of Afrotropical Bird Biology. He has attended over 70 scientific workshops or conferences on birds and delivered oral or poster presentations at the majority of these. He holds or has held more than 40 honorary positions associated with ornithology or bird conservation in South Africa, and has served lengthy stints on BirdLife South Africa's national rarities and list committees. He has completed nearly 90 specialist avian impact studies, many of them for industrial scale developments with potentially significant impact on birds. BirdLife South Africa's recent reviews of the status of the region's birds draws attention to critical taxa that should be prioritized in research and conservation efforts going forward. Scratch below the surface of our current knowledge, and these birds and their plights, and in most cases you will find seminal works either spearheaded by David Allan or on which he has been a collaborator. David Allan is also acknowledged as an expert on a wide range of the country's most threatened birds, such as the Cape and bearded vultures, blue and wattle cranes, Ludwig's and Denham's bustards, Rudd's and Botha's larks, southern bald ibis, and the blue swallow. In addition to all the above, David Allan has always had the enthusiasm and the humility required to mentor young ornithologists. He is highly committed to encouraging and nurturing a passion for birds among the general public. He has chaired and administered bird clubs, including many within the BirdLife South Africa stable, and he has delivered many courses in bird identification and has also led innumerable bird outings. David Allan is a long-time member of BirdLife South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you will agree that David Allan is thoroughly deserving of our Gill Memorial Medal. Congratulations, David. We are all looking forward to hear your presentation. You have had such an exceptional, accomplished career. Well done. Congratulations. Thank you.
Hello everybody. I was simply gobsmacked when Mark Anderson contacted me early last year to inform me that I was to be awarded the Gill Memorial Medal. This award has always been well known to me. I was once part of the process as chair of the BirdLife South Africa Scientific Committee at the time, which saw it awarded to the late Terry Oakley years ago. I've had the privilege of knowing, and in several cases working with, many of the previous recipients. All of them have served as inspirational role models throughout my journey through the world of birds. However, I'm simply a rung or two below the level of these luminaries, and imagining my own name on the medal has always been a step beyond my expectations. But I've ever appreciated that of all the awards out there, this is the one to most aspire to as an ornithologist. Those involved have therefore done me an honor beyond my ability to express adequate gratitude for. In circumstances like this, it's always seemed to me that the safest course of action is just to make sure you accept the award, get your hands firmly wrapped around it, thank everyone in sight effusively, and then scarper back to your seat as quickly as possible, preferably without tripping over anything on the way. The more you say or do, the more likely you are to ruin the occasion. But I don't think I can quite get away with that here today. This address allows me the chance to say nice things about some people, and I'm eagerly going to grasp the opportunity. But before I go any further, let me first thank my family for their support when birds were no longer enough, something that manifested later in life. Peter Stein's book Eagle Days fired the imagination of a young man and instilled a dream. Real Eagle Days with Kit Hustler clothed that dream in the first threads of reality. Warwick Tarberton, my mentor in every sense of the word, provided the inspiration and opportunity for me to enter this profession. He also set an example always beyond my ability to live up to. I once described to one of our joint colleagues how Warwick would have approached a particular challenge. His retort was that, "We can't all be Warwick Tarberton." Well, indeed we can't, but we can try, and the world will be a much better place if we do. At the Fitzpatrick Institute, I was supervised by the late Professor Phil Hockey, and my interminable master's degree that started off on bustards and meandered eventually into cranes gave him more than a few grey hairs. The director of the Fitz at that time was the formidable Professor Roy Siegfried. During my years as the field worker for the Southern African Bird Atlas Project, SABAP, my atlasing efforts often took me to highly remote areas for extended periods, similar to the work I'd done under Warwick. Sometimes I would go days without even seeing another human being, never mind talking to one. Knowing this, Roy once pointedly brought up at a university meeting how rare such isolation was in the modern world. I sensed that as the perpetually harassed director of an internationally renowned institute, the idea of such respite appealed to him deeply. It was indeed a different time. Before cell phones, laptops, birding apps, the internet, emails and social media. Before AV tourism, bird guiding and the dominance of twitching culture. Before the idea of bed and breakfast establishments in rural areas. Before the electric fencing off of vast swathes of our natural heritage, rendering it accessible only to pampered elites. Just a vehicle with basic camping gear, endless open country and plenty of birds to track down. Pretty much the height of my ambition for a formative chunk of my life. My years at the then Avian Demography Unit were true halcyon days. SABAB was a groundbreaking project that continually effused enthusiasm into the team at its heart. There I had the pleasure of working with James Harrison, far and away the best people manager I've ever had the privilege of working for. Professor Les Underhill was the director of the ADU, and I'm grateful to him for allowing me latitude in pursuing a wide variety of ornithological work, some to the benefit of the ADU and some possibly less so. Here at the Durban Natural Science Museum, my final career destination, I've worked under 3 different directors, Brett Hendy, Guy Redman and Alison Reuters. I'm similarly indebted to them for allowing me the freedom to both serve and explore this profession to the full extent that I have been able to. Behind the citation read out so kindly by Professor Chinsami Turan, I sense the hand of a close colleague and friend, Andrew Jenkins. Andrew is a guiding star amongst a generation of ornithologists that I've had the pleasure of watching develop around me, largely while I've been working at the museum. Others have included David Mapiza, Greg Davies and Alistair McInnes. All 4 have carved out extraordinarily significant ornithological careers, and it's been an honor to have shared with them at least a small part of their respective journeys. I also sense the support of Mark Anderson in this award and in many other aspects of my professional life. I'd be remiss not to confess just how much pleasure I've derived from contributing over the years to BirdLife South Africa's flagship magazine, African BirdLife, and its predecessor, Africa Birds and Birding, under the talented editorship of Eve Gracie. Eve has been an inspiration and has taught me more about natural history writing than anyone else. In April 1983, I gave a presentation entitled Sparrowhawks and Plantations at the Symposium on Birds and Man, hosted by the Wits Bird Club, a branch of the then Southern African Ornithological Society, now BirdLife South Africa. It was to be a watershed event for me. In the audience was the late Professor Hugh Patterson, and he consequently granted me the initial academic opportunity that paved the way for my professional sustainability in science. Now, approaching 4 decades later, with the present BirdLife South Africa AGM and its award of this medal, similarly linked to a conference, Lab 2021, I knew I simply had to make another presentation to somehow close the circle. This one is entitled Pelagic Seabirds along the Kwazulu-Natal coast. If all went well in this strange new virtual world, that pre-recorded talk would have gone out yesterday afternoon, completing the personal cycle. From the cloistered secrets of the dashing accipiters of the Gauteng Highveld to the majesty of the ocean-going wave riders of the Southern Oceans, it's been an unforgettable voyage. With my mandatory retirement now only months away, I just wish I could do it all again. I've contended earlier in this address that there are more worthy candidates that BirdLife South Africa might have awarded this medal to, but the organization could certainly not have given it to one who feels more honored by it than I do. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Anusha, and very well done, David. Very deserving recipient. And as I told you a few days ago, I'm very honored to be CEO of BirdLife South Africa when you receive this award. We're coming to the end of the AGM. One of the last things we're going to be doing is just presenting a short presentation on some of our recent initiatives and publications. And we have a pre-recording here, very short pre-recording. So I'm going to hand over to our staff to present that.
Greetings, my name is Karen Josiah, and I am BirdLife South Africa's Conservation and Ecotourism Intern for the year 2021, and I will be presenting on BirdLife South Africa's Bird of the Year. Each year, BirdLife South Africa selects a species as the Bird of the Year. The Cape Rock Jumper has been chosen as the Bird of the Year for 2021. BirdLife South Africa has partnered with Rock Jumper Worldwide Birding Adventures to raise awareness about this interesting species. Bird of the Year is funded by the Hans Volhazen Charitable Trust. The Cape Rock Jumper is endemic to the mountain pine grass region of South Africa. They are medium-sized passerine birds with black and orange coloration. As the name suggests, they are often seen running and jumping across rocks and grassland, but they rarely fly. Unfortunately, they face multiple threats, including habitat loss, and they are particularly vulnerable to climate change. They have been classified as near-threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. These birds are very special to South Africa and require extensive conservation work. You can help us do this by supporting BirdLife South Africa. Our posters for the Cape Rock Jumper Bird of the Year 2021 are out now, and you can purchase them through our website. We also have pin badges that are for sale, that all contributions will go towards the conservation of the species. Thank you.
The BirdLife South Africa checklist of birds 2021 was published earlier this year. This document is available as a printed version as well as online on the BirdLife South Africa website. BirdLife South Africa se voorlys vir voëls in Suid-Afrika in 2021 is ook beskikbaar op ons webwerf. In total, there are 873 species in South Africa in 2021. 865 bird species from the mainland and 8 bird species from the Prince Edward Island group. Those include Marion Island and Prince Edward Island. This 873, a total
beginning of Anneline's presentation.
Renamed 2 bird species. Those include Marion BirdLife.
The third of contributions will go towards conservation of the species. Thank you.
The BirdLife South African checklist of birds 2021 was published earlier this year. This document is available as a printed version as well as online on the BirdLife South Africa website. BirdLife South Africa se voorlys vir voëls in Suid-Afrika in 2021 is ook beskikbaar op ons webwerf. In total, there are 873 species in South Africa in 2021. There are 865 bird species from the mainland and another 8 bird species from the Prince Edward Island group. Those include Marion Island and Prince Edward Island. Of this 873, a total of 3 species were added to the South African checklist. So these were approved during 2020 by the BirdLife South Africa National Rarities Committee, and those are spur-winged lapwing, lesser cuckoo, and Madagascar pratincoal. There's also 17 scientific name changes, and these were put forward by the International Ornithological Committee. So these are both genus and species name changes. Then we renamed 2 bird species, and we got approval to do so from the International Ornithological Committee. And we are also widely applauded for doing this, so changing the historical names of Hottentot teal to blue-billed teal and Hottentot buttonquail to Fynbos buttonquail. In one more common name change, Eurasian whippoorwill was split into Eurasian and Hudsonian whippoorwills. Finally, I would like to thank the BirdLife South Africa List Committee, our chairperson, Dr. Chris Potts from Birding Echo Tours, and staff member Aaron Sutik, who does all the hard work in the background. And there a very big thank you to our sponsor, Durham, allowing the printing of the BirdLife South Africa checklist.
BirdLife South Africa has always taken a proudly South African stance on birds, birding, and bird conservation. As the NGO mandated to protect South Africa's birds and their habitats, we're passionate about getting South Africans excited and enthusiastic about our incredible local aid fauna. According to our 2020 checklist of birds in South Africa, our country hosts an enviable 865 species, which equates to around 8% of all bird diversity worldwide. Additionally, we are also privileged to host 49 endemic and rare birds. This impressive and unique diversity makes South Africa one of the top destinations in the world to go birding. However, no platform existed for South African birders to display their country existence. South Africa has more than enough diversity to justify a standalone country list. But while there are existing leaderboards for people to display their sub-regional lists and even their provincial lists, no such facility existed for South African country lists. We took it upon ourselves to rectify this enormous oversight, and in February 2020, we founded the South African Business Club. This club is open to anyone who has recorded more than 300 species within the bounds of South Africa, including the Prince Islands. Within just a few months of the launch, we had over 300 members, and the club is still growing on a daily basis. The idea for this club is ultimately to encourage proudly South African responsible birding, as well as to drive awareness and enjoyment of our agricultural natural heritage. We are eager to keep growing the club and encourage all of our members and supporters to join us in celebrating our country's birds. You can find the South Africa Listers Club on our website under the Go Birding tab.
On behalf of the board, I would also like to congratulate David as the well-deserving recipient of the prestigious Gill Memorial Medal. Moving on to resolutions, there are no resolutions that need to be dealt with today, thankfully, so we can move on to any other business. We have almost reached the end of our proceedings now, but before we wrap up, we have one very important item that needs to be attended under this agenda item, and I will again hand over to Mark to introduce it. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Philip. Loretta, are you there? And if you are able to share your video and unmute your microphone. Melissa, is Loretta there?
Yeah.
Hi, Loretta. Thanks very much. Over to you then to read the citation. I'll move to the next screen.
Okay.
Loretta?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. Loretta, thanks very much. So we've invited Loretta Trock, the author of the book, The Forgotten Scientist, to just read a citation at this prestigious moment where we are renaming the library at Islehouse, our head office in Johannesburg.
Thank you, Mark. Sol Sithole dedicated 62 years of his life to the study of birds and fossils through the Transvaal Nauditsong Natural History Museum. As a prolific collector and preparator, Sol made an indelible mark on the history of ornithology in South Africa. Sol's very intricate work was supported by an expert understanding of the anatomy of birds, as well as their behavior, both of which Sol observed with interest while assisting the preeminent scientists of the time during field expeditions. Though the contributions of Austin Roberts and others are lauded, men like Sol, who contributed so much to our understanding of birds, are largely forgotten because of the exclusionary nature of South Africa's past. It is therefore befitting that we dedicate the library at BirdLife South Africa in remembrance and recognition of Sol, his legacy, and the contributions of those like him for birds in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Loretta. Really appreciate that, and well done on your excellent book, which many of us have already enjoyed reading, and we also thank Jacana for their support and for publishing your book. The image on your left is a citation that Loretta's just read, which has been beautifully framed and is up in our library at Islehouse, our head office in Johannesburg, and we also have now a sign on the door which shows that the library is now named the Sol Sithole Memorial Library. We did get permission from the family to rename the library, and Tembazita Saul's great-grandson has been really very helpful, and we're very grateful for him getting the support of the family for the naming of our library in memory of his great-grandfather. And I'm not sure whether Temba is with us today. He's, I think, working today in Pretoria, but Temba, thank you very much to you and your family. Really appreciate it.
Temba had connected, but he has problems with connectivity, and he did say that I must convey the family's gratitude to BirdLife South Africa.
Thanks very much, Lerato. And just to maybe mention that we're going to be going sometime later this year to a school in Mamelodi where Temba lives, and we're going to be making a donation of binoculars and bird books to that school, and also telling the learners of the school about the significance of the naming of the library at our head office.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of our morning's proceedings, right on time. Before I close off, I would like to just thank Isabel Himan, our secretary for today, for the arrangements, and also Melissa Whitecross and Andrew de Block for the orchestration of our backroom technology. Thanks very much to Melissa and to Andrew. I truly hope that circumstances will have improved sufficiently this time next year for us to be able to again meet face-to-face at a date and venue to be announced. I wish you all a safe journey through life until then. Thank you.